Hi everyone, Vincent here, and I'm joined by a very special guest today, somebody who contacted me for audio coaching last week, and I've spoke to him once, and we're going to be listening to his story today and trying to see how he can move forward from his current position. So I just want to introduce Ben. Welcome, Ben, and please let everybody know your story and your situation.
Thank you, Vincent. So my story starts in October. It's actually 8th of October 2021. My ex-girlfriend broke things off with the unfortunate news that she had a terminal cancer diagnosis. Bit of a shock, as you can imagine. And I was quite beside myself at the time at the prospect of basically losing her to that, more so than the actual relationship breakdown. The relationship breakdown was obviously there, but my first thought was with, the fact that, potentially she wouldn't be here. So it was a kind of very difficult situation to deal with. Basically from there, she reached out. I went into no contact. She basically shut me out. So I couldn't really do much anyway. I did admittedly reach out to her family out of pure concern, because I had been told that her family didn't know about her health. And this was something that I knew about. I'd been told about from early on in our relationship of 2 years. And so I reached out to her family basically for two reasons. One was to rally as much support around her as possible. And the second was to basically, out of respect to her parents and her family in general, and especially her father, who had been really good to me. And the last thing I really wanted was for him to think that I'd basically deserted her with the news that she was unwell. From there, I went into no contact, kind of inadvertently in a way. I just basically waited for her to reach out. I got to reach out about a month later, give or take 2 weeks. I think it was around about November 15, or we ended up meeting up in November 15, 2021. She reached out to me. She asked me to meet up. She travelled up to meet me. We do live quite a distance away from each other. We kind of always have. We'd probably be at least 50 kilometres away from each other because we're on opposite sides of the city here. And so she asked to meet up. We met up at a cafe up near me, so she came up my way. Basically, when we sat down, it was all amicable. I went there with the intent of keeping everything calm, chilled, and friendly and playful. I say playful within reason because obviously she was dealing with a health crisis. But I just basically had the intention to keep everything cool and not too serious and not discuss the relationship and not get into any of that. And basically we sat down and she told me that she'd invited me there so that I could say whatever I had to say. There had been some emails going back and forward from the time we broke up until that meeting. So there had been some email communication going back and forward. I didn't feel like I was begging or anything like that. There was just stuff that, clarification of different points in the relationship, and it was sort of going both ways as well. So, and I appreciated the fact that she was dealing with what was a life-threatening situation, and she had told me that it was terminal. So she'd actually said to me, "I'm dying," which is very hard to take. But she hadn't used the word terminal, but it means the same thing. Anyway, we met up. I kept everything cool. She sort of said to me, "I invited you here to have it out with me as such," and I sort of just sat there and said, "No, I don't want to do that. I've had kind of a month to myself to kind of deal with the breakup on my own, and I don't feel I need to do that right now."
What were your thoughts regarding the breakup situation? Obviously, you had been told about the terminal diagnosis, but what was her reasoning for, okay, she has this horrible diagnosis, but instead of trying to bring her loved ones closer. She ended the relationship. Did she explain why she wanted to do that? And when you met her, how did you feel in trying to kind of consider the illness on one hand, but also the breakup? I mean, how did all of that fit in?
So plot twist. When I reached out to her family, her sister comes back to me like within the day or a day later, because I reached out to them via Facebook Messenger. And her mum and dad are like basically non-existent on Facebook. Her mum likes to play like Facebook games and stuff, and that's the only reason she has an account is for those cool little games that you can play on Facebook. Anyway, in amongst it, I sent the exact same copy and paste message to her sister, and I will tell you what the message said, so that for the context of everything, I literally just said to the effect of, I know your family is going through a very difficult time at the moment with my ex's, and I'm not going to say a name, of course, but my ex's diagnosis, insert her name. I just wanted to let you know that the only reason I'm not there for her is because she's pushed me away and she won't let me be there for her. And yeah, that basically was pretty much my message. The sisters come back to me within like a day and messaged me back and said it's not true. And I still have no evidence as such of one way or the other. So I'm just sort of taking that as being factual. I was freaking out, to be quite frank. Like, I was like literally freaking out. I mean, I've been told point blank that she's dying, and I was just beside myself. And I was, if anything, I wouldn't exaggerate by saying that I was potentially mourning the inevitable loss of her permanently.
We've got the sister basically saying this isn't true. So we already have a potential element, and we don't like to think of this. We don't want to paint somebody in a bad light, but we have to consider the possibility that your ex created this diagnosis as an excuse to end the relationship, which, if true, is obviously a horrific way to behave. Now, what we don't know is who is telling the truth. Is your ex telling the truth, or is her sister telling the truth, or is there something lost in translation where maybe the sister didn't even know the severity? I mean, what we don't know, I suppose at the moment, we can't say for certain.
I can answer that to a degree. So I would look at it from the point of view that I have no real reason to believe that the sister would have any reason to tell me that that was the case if she didn't believe that it was untrue. Now, having said that, the explanation that I got later on, so after I met my ex for coffee in November, which is where we were up to, I asked her, I said, how's things and everything? And initially she said to me, I asked about her health. I mean, of course I would, like, who wouldn't? And she basically told me straight point blank, that's none of your business, which took me aback. And I kind of just gave her a look where it was kind of like, I knew what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, if you're seriously not, I didn't have to say anything. I literally just looked at her, and she got the impression from my look that it was like, if you're not going to talk about that, then, like, what are we here for effectively? I don't even know how to communicate that, because I'm not one to really do that kind of thing, but I knew what I was thinking in my head, and the look on my face must have just expressed to her straight up, you better give me some answers here, or I don't know. I think I said to her of the effect of, I don't know why we're here. Around that point, and I think that's what got her talking. And she, the look I gave her, she kind of just started talking about it, and she started breaking down and crying. And she's like, I've got surgery in like December, I think it was at the time. And then that got postponed to February, but it was COVID. She said it was due to COVID and the COVID situation, which made sense. But to answer your question in terms of the validity of that story, what happened was after we met up on that Sunday, because I'd reached out to her sister again after that, and the reason I reached out to her sister after that meeting was to just tell her sister, hey, we've met up, everything's good, because her sister had been very much like, oh, be cautious, be cautious. And so I messaged her sister and I said, look, we've met up, everything's good, it's all good. And I was like, just wanting her sister to back off if because from the conversation we'd had at the cafe, I was kind of satisfied with the answer that I got, which was basically that she hadn't told any of the family because she didn't want to stress anyone, because her mum and dad do actually suffer from, they both had cancer, and that's categorically true, and I know that to be true. So it kind of made sense why she may not tell her family, because there's an extra burden and extra pressure on them when they're going through their own health battles. And her housemate's mother happens to have breast cancer at the time. So it kind of made sense. So I left that alone. I've messaged the sister afterwards and I've said, like, everything's good, we've met up, and she's told me to still be cautious. And I'm like, all right, that's interesting, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the plot thickens a little bit because, we don't know who is telling the truth definitively, but in your position, you're probably thinking, I love this woman, I would like to get back together, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. So how did things progress from that initial meeting when you kind of said, I want some answers, etc., etc.? How did things go beyond that point?
She dropped me off home. We hugged. She was quite emotional. She's like, I miss you and all this sort of stuff. One weird thing she said to me, and it's this thing about, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but it's the thing about trusting my own intuition to a degree. Because one thing she said to me when she dropped me off and we hugged, and she was quite emotional, and she said to me, oh, if you need, you're a man, if you need to, go meet other women or whatever, because I'm dealing with my health condition, and, men kind of have to do that. And you can, do that if you need to, kind of thing. And I turned around and I said, well, I haven't been chasing hookups or anything. Obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but I basically said I haven't been chasing being with other women since we broke up. Why I don't need to. It's not something that, if I wanted it, basically what I said to her is, if I wanted it, I would have already done it in this period of time. It's not the way I'm wired. We've only just broken up. I've got I might be old fashioned, I don't know, but I always give people a grace period, and I've given her a good 2-year grace period, which is the longest, but I always will give it a good, few months at minimum, up to sort of 6 months to see where things go before I move on. I mean, part of that's processing everything, as you can probably appreciate, but I'm not about to go jump into bed. I want to keep this PG for your podcast, but I'm not about to go and be with other women straight off the bat. But the thing that with the Vincent that got me with that comment was, I kind of thought to myself, and I could be on the wrong track, but I kind of thought, is that her telling me that that's what she's doing? Don't know if I'm on the right track with that, but it was something that kind of stuck in my mind, and I sort of took it as normally when people accuse you of cheating excessively or different things like that, they're normally, I'm not saying she was cheating, I'm just saying that when people normally throw those things at you a lot, it's often them projecting. That's what I'm trying to get to. I didn't know whether that was the case, so I had to kind of take it with a pinch of salt and leave it be, but I did tell her that's not what I was looking for. And somehow she came up with the idea that we were going to, I don't want to get too far ahead here, but somehow she came up with the idea in the conversation that we were going to sort of have a 6-month period. I think it was because she said, and this struck me the other day when I was thinking about it, I think it was because she said she was dealing with a health condition, and she had surgery in December or so, and then it had been pushed back to February or however that happened. But she basically said something about a 6-month period. And I've kind of just gone, yeah, no worries, or not no worries, but okay, meaning okay, I've taken what you're saying. And somehow she came up with the idea that we were going to have a 6-month period where we were going to sort out our own stuff and come back together. And I still to this day can't work out for the life of me where that 6-month period idea came from, because I didn't suggest it. The next sort of point of contact from there was, I did no contact about 3 or 4 times, and she responded to that no contact repetitively. So we basically met up. So the second time that she reached out, we ended up making contact was 4 months after that initial meeting in November. So it's basically the fifth. The 5 month mark, basically.
Okay, Ben. So when she reached out to you, and it's about 4 or 5 month mark, how did things look then? I mean, what was the situation with her health? And what was the situation regarding what she and what you wanted from a potential reconnection?
Directly after that meeting at the cafe in November, she actually rang me after I'd reached out to her sister, and she'd gone, "Why did you reach out to my sister again?" Right? And I said, "Well, because I was just trying to let her know that everything was cool." She goes, "Ben, she doesn't know, right?" And I went, "Okay." And she goes, "I owe you the most." The first thing she actually said on the call was, "I owe you the biggest apology." And I was like, "Wow, okay, I'm getting an apology," which was new. And she said, "My sister doesn't know. Now I'll have to call her and sort this out," right? So she gets off the phone, calls her sister, calls me back, and basically reiterates the fact that, like, please don't reach out to my family, about this again, kind of thing. But she also had very sincerely apologized to me about the misunderstanding and the fact that she basically, the way I took it, was the fact that she basically hurt me by breaking it off the way she did with how bluntly she broke it off, basically, is the way I interpreted it. Moving along, she had surgery in February of 2022. It was like around about the 26th of February from memory. And then after that, her whole attitude changed, and it was almost like, I've got the bill of clean health, we're good to go kind of thing, and trying to sort this out. Like, she didn't exactly say that, but that's basically like the attitude that she came with. And what had happened was, around that time in early 2022, we had a massive lockdown here, and I had to basically find new work. And what I found was a call center job, and I went into that. And she saw that on my LinkedIn. I didn't do that intentionally. I just updated my LinkedIn to say I'd got this new role, and everything changed because she came pursuing me hard, and like, she's like, "Oh, I'll meet up. I'll come and see you at your work." And I mean, she does work a bit of a distance from the city, but she's like, "I'll come to your work. I'll meet you there. When are you free?" It was very full on, and it was her very much pursuing. And I took that as being the fact that I changed jobs, and she'd seen me as, she'd been there for me, but she'd seen me as unstable in terms of my income, because the industry I work in is very seasonal. And I understand that, but it changed the dynamic, and she was very much like, "I want to see you, I want to see you, I want to see you." And I had to delay that by a couple of weeks, and I ended up spending the weekend of Easter 2022 at her house.
What's interesting, Ben, on this situation is, on our call when we spoke last week, I remember you saying that it was your belief that one of the main reasons she ended the relationship was because she didn't feel that you were maybe kind of financially stable or whatnot, due to your job, which is very seasonal, until, like you say, you got a new job in a call center, and then she automatically, it seemed, started to become more interested. So when she ended the relationship, and it coincided with her saying, "I've got this terminal illness," was she kind of saying, "Look, I've got this terminal illness, I don't want you to kind of see me decline, we need to break up"? Or was it almost a sad coincidental thing? She was saying, "I don't think this is working because of your seasonal work, but I'm also going through a lot of health problems, so I just think we should break up." So what I mean by this, what the question I guess I'm asking is, do you think it was your unstable work life, or do you think it was her illness which was the main reason she gave to break up?
suffered from severe anxiety due to a workplace bullying situation, something I never believed in, basically for the good part of the last 20 years. Now, that sounds excessive, but like I really had no anxiety issues before I went through this roughly 6-year period of a workplace bullying situation, and I came out of the other end with severe anxiety that I've dealt with since the early 2000s. And as a result, I actually don't drive, and I've had a lot of anxiety based around that. I mean, I can drive, but I haven't. I've not held a driver's license. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's been the case, and I think that was part of it. Now, I can see two things here, and I don't want to sort of speculate too much, but I can see it being partially my income and my financial position, because I know when I met her, I was struggling a little bit, and I can see that being part of it. But I also think potentially it was too because she expressed in her emails that I can't be there for her when she was going to her appointments and stuff like that. And my response to that was, tell me which hospital you need to go to. Tell me which hospital you're going to be at for your appointments. I will get an Uber. Like, I have no problem. I said, because what she didn't know at the time, to be fair, was that I'd been using Ubers and stuff. I'd only just started using rideshare, and I'd been using them quite a bit, and I hadn't said anything about it because we live so far apart. And the thing about it is that I thought she would be angry at me because, like, the amount of money that I would be spending to commute using rideshare. And so I thought she'd look at that as being like, a waste of money and like excessive and etc. given my, seasonal work pattern, etc. I hope that all makes sense, but that's the way I looked at it, so I didn't say anything about it. Now, when she said I couldn't be there for her for her appointments and stuff, I said, look, you just tell me where you're going to be, or you tell me what hospital I need to go to. I'll get an Uber there. I said, I've been using them for a while now, and I don't know whether she took that on board or picked that up or was caught up in the conversation or whatever, but I think she may have overlooked that point. I don't really know. But backtracking a little bit, I kind of, after the breakup, I felt like, I don't, right or wrong, I kind of felt like, is there someone else in the picture? Is this like almost like a convenient, it sounds bad to say it, but I kind of felt like, is her health, if it's not true, potentially, is this just an excuse or a story to basically break things off with a valid, or what's perceived as a valid reason? I don't know. But she did express that I couldn't be there, I couldn't take her to her appointments, stuff like that, and she had expressed the fact that I couldn't drive her to her appointments and things like that, so I see that being potentially part of the problem. I've done a lot of work on that kind of stuff, but still, I can see that being part of the problem. So I think it could have been a good couple of things that might have contributed, but I just kind of felt like this, like, it's weird because I don't doubt her in terms of her health per se, but there is a question mark over that.
When we hear this story, just as I did previously and the listeners are now, I'm sure, your mind might be going back and forth like mine was regarding, is Ben's ex telling the truth? One moment it seems like maybe she's not, then it feels maybe she is, maybe the sister never knew the truth, maybe the sister had a problem with Ben's ex and was trying to stir the pot. I mean, we don't know for certain, but what we do know is that unfortunately there was a breakup, but Ben's ex was always in and around, a few months down the line, she reaches out, etc. So, there is something clearly still between Ben and his ex. And as we move forward into 2022, we get to the current point of where we are now on the story, Ben, and how, you met up again, and she was basically saying she had a clean bill of health, which is incredible and fantastic, especially, since she did suggest that it was terminal. Putting that to one side, whether there was a miraculous recovery, whether she wasn't telling the truth, irrespective, right now, there are you, Ben, and your ex, and it feels like, but there's almost nothing stopping you getting back together. I mean, what happened from that point?
Okay, so I spent the Easter weekend at her house, And we slept in the same bed, but there was nothing intimate. It wasn't. I didn't try to push the point. I didn't try to, obviously push anything. I kind of was trying to take it at her pace. I was trying to keep it really chill, but trying to initiate some like physical contact because I kind of felt like, hey, it shouldn't really feel too much different to what we were. And I don't know if I was ahead of myself. I didn't really feel like I was. But she kind of brushed me off a little bit and she said, I think I have a cold. I don't want to get you sick. And I kind of took that as a, valid reason why she wouldn't want to be, kissing me and stuff like that. It was probably, ironically, the most that we'd conversed in our whole relationship, which sounds crazy. And it was all just really good conversation. We agreed on a lot of stuff and we kind of were getting along quite well. I mean, she asked about my work situation but she did say to me, I'm surprised that you changed jobs because you've done a lot of study to be in the field you're in. So it surprised me, which kind of seemed as a positive, but I don't know in hindsight. And then anyway, she was working while I was there over the weekend. She's got strange hours. I pulled a root system out that she couldn't pull out because I just wanted to do something nice for her while she wasn't there. I vacuumed her car while she was there and stuff. I was trying to show initiative because one thing with me is while we were together, I'd come off the back of a 3-year degree. I was exhausted. I don't know if that makes sense, but I was just physically exhausted. And I got a little bit on the demotivated side, to be honest. What it was, not demotivated, it was more a case of like when I went down to her place on the weekend, which would be at least fortnightly, and spent the weekend there, I kind of just wanted to chill out and spend time with her. I didn't really want to be doing like mowing lawns and doing all the housework and doing all that kind of stuff. It's like, babe, can we just chill out and like, spend time together kind of thing. And she kind of wanted to be a bit more active and do all of her things around the house and stuff like that. So it wasn't really, I'll be honest, like, wasn't trying to be lazy, but I was just not really enthused to be doing that kind of stuff on my weekend. And I was trying to show when I went down for the Easter weekend that I was taking more initiative. So I was doing stuff around the house and I was trying to help her out and I pulled the root system out. She couldn't get out and stuff like that. And basically I spent that Good Friday through to Easter Sunday with her. And then basically what happened was she wanted to pull a hedge out outside and I was like, I don't have the right shoes for it. I brought down my good shoes. I can't use a shovel because I don't want to wreck the shoes that you bought me for my birthday. I explained all this. I spent a good part of 3 days with her. And I said, I'm going to go back home because I don't want to my thinking was I don't want to sit there as a man and watch her struggle to pull out a hedge in her garden because she wants to do it on a Sunday and not be an active participant. Like I felt like that was disrespectful. That's just me. So I told her I was going to go home. I had breakfast. She nicely cooked me breakfast. I had that. And then I left about 10:30 in the morning. And she made a point of that later on. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up at that point. But that's kind of how the weekend went down. And then post that weekend, I didn't hear from her for about 12 days. And then when I didn't hear from her for about 12 days, I lost a little bit of control. I wasn't aggressive, but I lost a little bit of control. And I emailed her and I kind of said, well, because all our communication from the time we broke up, weirdly, other than that weekend, I might have even texted her that weekend, but all the other communication from October when we broke up right through to that Easter was mostly email, and the only time she ever texted me was for that day that we met up at the cafe, and also for that Easter weekend, which I found the email thing a little bit on the weird side because I'm like, you got my phone number?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that it was remaining an email communication, to me, that shows that one or both people want to keep things fairly formal. And I think from what you have said, you would have been happy to definitely take things in a more relaxed, informal way. So the way and the reasoning as for why she maintained these emails, it does seem like she was trying to keep some type of formality. The situation that we see here with Ben is that there are so many things that we can't say for certain Was his ex truly in a life-threatening situation? Okay, then moving forward, once again, an illness being brought up. Was this the real reason as for why she didn't want to be intimate after inviting Ben over for 3 days? Ben probably had high hopes there could be some reconnection, yet there wasn't. Was it due to an illness again, or was there something else in his ex's mind? We don't know for definite on these, and again, when we look at the communication, Ben's ex was determined to keep this email, and that is quite a sterile, fairly cold, you could say, style of communication. So all of the signs so far, whether there is a good explanation or not, does suggest that there is a level of distance being put between them. Now, is this because Ben's ex didn't truly believe that Ben could find the motivation to be a man of action, to be somebody with leadership qualities, and to move forward and up the ladder in his life? We don't know for certain, but Ben definitely recognizes that his lack of motivation at times was something that his ex wasn't particularly happy with. So we now get to the scenario where, it's a week or two after they'd been together for a few days, email communication is what's going on, and Ben is understandably confused. Where is this going and what is happening? So what happened from then, Ben? What happened from that point?
Just to highlight, she was the one that initiated the email communication, so that wasn't coming from me, that was coming from her. And I think you touched on that, but I was more like, I'm thinking, why is she not just texting me? She's got my number. But anyway, I kind of felt, and I don't want to get too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole as such, for lack of a better term, but basically I kind of felt the whole email thing gave me the feeling that I was almost being hidden from whether it be her family or someone else involved. I don't know, but that was the feeling I got, wrong or right. But anyway, to answer your question, after Easter weekend, the next reach out happened from memory. It would have been around my birthday of 2022, which is the 25th of June. I don't mind telling you that. So the end of June, basically. And then there was sort of sporadic reaching out from her, because I kind of just kept going back into no contact. And each time she'd reach out, I'd always reply. I'd sort of go the line of, hey, it's great to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. When are you free, kind of thing. So I did what I've heard the majority of the coaches say to do, and keep it cool, calm and casual, and just invite them to meet up when they reach out. And I did exactly that each time. So basically from August, so we're getting down a little bit down the track here, but basically there was these sort of consistent reaching out about every month. It was really weird because it was almost like clockwork. And so pretty much from August last year through till December, she reached out about 3 or 4 different times. And each time I did the exact same thing. I'm like, hey, it's great to hear from you. Not necessarily the same wording, but along the same kind of sentiment. And I'm like, it's great to hear from you. When are you free to catch up? And I just basically, as I was told you on the call when we spoke about a week ago, I just basically kept getting essentially told no, but told no through excuses. So, it was like, I'm working, or I'm not free that day, or it was all basically all centered around her work and her being busy, and her being busy with work.
I mean, the things that I'm picking up here, Ben, very interesting as well that you said you felt like you may have been hidden due to the emails. I mean, it's absolutely something that we have to consider. And I know, we were saying we don't really want to create a conspiracy of it, and we don't know for certain. But certainly she was keeping a level of distance between you, despite wanting to communicate regularly. And that tells us, there's something not quite right. So whether there was somebody in the background, that is something which I don't think is unreasonable for you to think, because, people are less likely to maybe check their partner's emails than perhaps their text feed. Not that I suggest that's healthy in any way, shape or form, but that's what some people do, and some people might think, well, emails are a way I can get away with this more. Now, it's interesting as well when you was talking about the reaching out almost feeling like clockwork. You see, I believe that the general time frame that people reach out does vary from person to person and relationship to relationship and breakup to breakup, but the average amount of time I see is around 6 months. So if somebody's reaching out at such regularity, almost every month, I would suggest that shows a high level of interest. But on the flip side, when you're asking to meet after a bit of a positive conversation, and she is always saying, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, this is where it doesn't add up. And this is where we have to look at the situation and basically say, you were doing everything you could, Ben. I believe that your responses to when she was reaching out was generally speaking as good as they could be. Keeping things positive, keeping things light, asking to meet. She's reaching out to you. She's thinking about you. It's reasonable for you to ask that question. You asked to meet, and I wouldn't necessarily say straight away do that, but obviously the history between you, what has happened before, the constant communication, it's very, very understandable. And the fact that she kept batting it away, to me, tells us that there's something in the background, adding to the whole email situation and adding to everything else that we have seen. There is something where she's showing a high level of interest in the regularity of contact, but on the flip side of that, she won't take it to the next stage. So something is holding her back. Something is making her feel fearful.
So there's something that I should mention regarding that weekend, right? So after I spent that Easter weekend with her, because I travel by public transport, I took a lot of my stuff down in my backpack, and I took some good clothes, because one of her big complaints when we were together is that I always generally go around in track pants and sneakers, right? Which is true, because the industry I work in, I'll be up front. I know we haven't covered it yet. Not that it matters, but it's a fitness industry. So, it makes sense that I would be in casual wear majority of the time. And because that was just easy to do, I would generally, get around in track pants and sneakers a lot of the time. And I did have some better clothes at her house for going out and stuff. But basically what happened, because we had obviously broken up, majority of that had already come with me. But when I went down there for the Easter weekend, I took a nice, pair of jeans and some good shoes and a nice shirt with me as well. And because I had so much stuff with me, I thought, I'll leave my, good clothes here so that when I see her next, I've got something nice to wear to go out, right? My thinking was, and 100% hand on heart, I don't see that as territorial. I know some people think that it is, etc. That's not my style, and that's not what I was thinking. I was literally just thinking, she's always had an issue, and I'm trying to show initiative here. This is my view on it. So I'm like, it's more convenient for me to leave this stuff here. I didn't really have to justify it. I'm just like, all right, I'll leave this here. I'll put it in the cupboard. I'll leave it there. I leave, and she's kind of kicked up a fuss for the listeners, because I can say it another way, but a lot of people wouldn't understand with my Aussie lingo. But basically, she's kicked up a fuss that I've left my good clothes there, and she said to me, "Oh, why did you do that?" Now, I don't want to get too far back into our history, but she had sort of done a similar thing at my house once, and it was just kind of like a joke. Like, she said to me jokingly, I don't know why she said it. I thought she was joking. I would take it as a joke. But she said to me, in case, your other girlfriends come around. I didn't have any other girlfriends, just to make it clear. I'm not like that. But I sort of laughed it off, and I didn't take it too seriously. I'm like, and I was actually amused, and I kind of knew that it was lighthearted, but at the same time, I sort of thought maybe it's something that she was just, trying to sort of stake her claim, so to speak, or whatever might be the case. But I'm not like that. So my reasons for leaving that stuff there was legitimate, but she got quite annoyed about it. And she's like, well, why did you do that? She actually said that in an email, and she's like, why did you leave your stuff there? And I didn't really think it was even a question personally. I just thought, well, it makes sense, doesn't it? And I replied and I said, this is why I've done it, exactly what I've just told you. But it was just interesting because it was kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, is there someone else around that she doesn't want to see that? Anyway, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but it was just a little tidbit that kind of tied on to the end of that get-together that kind of had me thinking, scratching my head a little bit, going, I do wonder now, because the emailing situation and then the clothes and the fact that she kicked up a fuss about the clothes being there. Anyway, moving along. So you asked what happened after that. So the next thing that really happened was that it was probably, I don't know, I reckon probably a good month or so, probably even longer, maybe even 8 weeks. I think it was like close to 2 months-ish. She actually reached out to my mum to return my clothes, the clothes that I just mentioned. And I was like, I didn't really want any flying monkey situations happening, so I kind of kept my family out of it as much as possible. My mum had actually reached out to her, unbeknown to me, early on, because my mum's last husband passed away from cancer many, many years ago. So my mum had sort of something that she could relate to my ex, and my mum really liked my ex, which is unusual for my mum. But there was that kind of thing there, and she'd reached out to her about the cancer situation. And my mum had spoken to her a little bit via Messenger, and she started to query things of her own accord without any input from me. I said very little to my family about anything because I didn't want to. I think I might have heard you mention this at some point. I know I heard someone mention this recently. I didn't want to badmouth my ex to my family at all, and I had no real reason to. And I didn't really tell them exactly what was going on with what I'd been told by the sister, because I didn't want my mum to dislike her. I didn't want any kind of contention if we were trying to reconcile. And it was one of those things where I was like, if it ever comes up later on, it'll come up naturally. It won't come up because I've told my family, if that makes sense. So the next, to answer your question, the next point of contact as such was not with me, but was with my mum, where she's reached out to her and said, where do I send these clothes to? And my mum's responded thinking it was my other ex that lived around the corner from her, and said, oh, why don't you just come around? So my last ex took the invitation and went to my mum's house. I wasn't there. They've sat down and had a cup of tea, and I'm baffled. But okay, I was like, why did she contact my family? But okay, no worries. My mum had told me this was happening, but she'd only told me after it had been organised. She's like, your ex is coming up. And it's quite a distance. We're talking 30 to 50 k's, depending whether she was at work or at home. So it's quite a distance for her to travel to take those clothes to my mum's house, where she could have really just put them in the mail. Literally, it was a shirt and a pair of jeans. So I was a bit baffled by that, because I'm like, that's interesting. They sat down, had a cup of coffee, tea or whatever. Mum's asked her about her health and everything. Mum sort of told me some stuff afterwards, and all I said to my mum was, do you think she was fishing for information? Because my ex had asked my mum if I was seeing anyone. She told her that, she's working 2 jobs and she's trying to build a house, or she's wanting to build a house, which was something that was already on the cards previously anyway. She'd already been looking. And it was just giving a lot of information really to my mum, I think. And I asked my mum, what did you think? What impression did you get? And my mum and my younger brother sat there and said, you felt like it was a bit of a fishing expedition to find out about where you were at.
Thank you everyone for listening to part 1 of this interview. I'll be uploading part 2 as soon as I can. And if I've already done that by the time you're listening to this and you're watching on YouTube, you will see the link to part 2 right now in the middle of your screen. Just click that and you can start listening straight away.